overall, but from my perspective, how many new drivers do we have in here right now? How many people are new? Okay, few of you. Okay, so we do have some. Let's give them a hand for being here, number one. We appreciate our new drivers more than I'm gonna let Dave point you out, but we appreciate you guys that are going to be here helping us in transportation and doing what we do. But I do appreciate the drivers that are returning from last year with the attention to your paperwork, timesheets, getting them filled out accurately. All of those things are important. Our payroll department is very meticulous. I'll just say it that way. Extremely meticulous, and they hold us to a very high standard when it comes to turning those things in. So the more, the better you do on that, it helps us, and it just keeps all the commotion down, and we do appreciate you doing that part of it for us. Thank you also especially for calling in as far in advance as you can when you're going to be absent. That is a very, very important thing. You have no idea how it helps me do my job, and it also helps everything just run generally smoother. Because if we have a alternate driver that I can put on your route, then I can get them prepared for the route. I can let them ride with you, see the route, drive it. We do prefer them to drive if they're driving your route. And get that ready, and it smooths the operation out like you can imagine on every level, on our level, on the school level, for the students. It's just so much better. So you guys absolutely knocked it out of the park yesterday, getting me those early absentee request forms in, your sick cards and all that. It's just so much appreciated. You have no idea. I will say that everything that I'm going to talk about today is included in the driver handbook that you have, okay? So a lot of the questions that we ask, and sometimes we don't have time to go back and read a book, I get it, I understand that. But a lot of the information and the questions that we have are in this book, and I'll refer to it myself a lot. And so please take time to review that. There are some changes in it. Something new this year that I did, just to give information to everybody, just in the environment that we're in, you have a whole section, whole booklet all to itself on the ramps at the schools. Now, know this, as far as the book is concerned and the ramps are concerned there's probably mistakes in it. If you find a mistake, feel free to come and let me know and point that out. I'll change it, republish it, and get that changed. You can make a note in your ramp booklet there, and that should get it going. So I'm sure there's mistakes. I double and triple checked it, but you know how that is. So it's just not going to be a perfect document ever. As a matter of fact, right now there's some changes at Colony I have to make. So I mean, it's just never perfect. It's always changing. It's like a living creature. It's all the time changing. So just be aware of that. So one thing I want to do right now, and I got a little time, I think, so I'm just going to share some history with you and share some statistics. I don't want to bore you with statistics, but I'm going to bore you with statistics, okay? So here's kind of where we are as far as driving, as far as our routes goes and everything. Again, I'm so glad that so many of you returned this year. That's a big deal. And thank you for coming back to do a wonderful job again. Right now, we have today, we have 61 routes in operation as far as the regular bus routes go, okay? 61. We've reduced 3 routes this year. We had some shorter routes out there that I had to put together. And so 3 routes are missing from last year. And it could have been 6, but we really logistically could only do 3. That means that some of you have had some students added to your bus, and some of your routes have changed, like London, for instance. I changed several routes at London. We needed to reconfigure those routes, because over time, these things just kind of spread out and they get choppy and everything else, so we had to pull those things back together. The routes that have changed, I had a route printed out for you at the table that Brittany should have handed you. So just be aware and look at that. Now, I want to do this if we can, because I'll just get bombarded if we're not careful. So any questions that you have, some of you need to be added back into Remind. Some of you have questions about your route, your transfer. There's a lot of questions that's going to be going. If you could give me today to let me handle, the stuff that happens right after training that's going to take priority. Tuesday, if you don't mind, after training, Tuesday and Wednesday after training, you can come to my office and we'll work through any questions or any kind of issues that you might have there, and I'll do my best to accommodate what we need to do right there. But the ramps are there, the transfers are there. You'll notice that the transfers changed. Because we cut 3 routes, it had to change the transfers on some of the ramps where the routes were cut. We had to, we're having to, we're calling it double up, but we're not really doubling up, we're just condensing is what we're doing. Because let me explain to you and go back to the history part. So as of right now, we have 1 part-time alternate, and that's all we have. But as you saw, there's several hands that went up here in the auditorium who are new drivers who are going to be coming. So we're going to have a little bit of a slow start this year, and we can expect first day we're going to have a doubled route, okay? Where you're going to be doing 2 routes. So that's just part of it, until we can get some of the new drivers in and get these alternates plugged in. We're going to need your help again in doing this. And so let me just show you something, and I've said it to some of you, but I'll say it again just for sake of repeating it. In our department, we have a pretty good turnover rate. Over time, I'm a statistics guy. I analyze everything, and to my detriment, I do. And so I do apologize for that. But anyway, what I found and what we found is, as we've looked at this over the years, we have an average of about 25 personnel that are going to leave transportation every year. At least 25. That's what we found over the years, okay? Now, what has happened this year, we've had 32 leave. So we've had a pretty good sized turnover just on regular routes, and I'm not sure how many special needs routes we have. How many special needs routes do we have, DD? 13. Okay, so we've got 74 routes total. So you think about that, that's approaching half of the drivers, at least, and the personnel. We're approaching half turnover rate. So 50% every year is going out the door. Just think about that for a minute. So when you see changes coming every year, if we had the same people every year, all the time, the routes didn't change, the students didn't move, we didn't have terrible disasters hit us, you know what I mean? You never know what's going to happen. So this is a living, breathing, moving thing. And we can never get in our mind that, mine's going to be the same as it was last year, or, everything's going to be static and never move and never change. It's changing. And what that requires from us is flexibility. And listen, I started scrambling before school was out, last year, before we hit summer break, I started hitting routes hard as I could, scrambling, trying to, work with this, talking to Rob, having communications, conversations, trying to understand, what's going on right here and how we can mitigate and make this as easy as possible. So there you have in your hand, the ramps and the changes that you see. Now, let me give you some perspective. 13 years ago when I started, we were transporting 6,000 plus students, okay? There's around 6,000. Our enrollment in the district was around 9,000 to 10,000, in that range. That's what the student enrollment was, and we were transporting 6,000, 6,500, I don't know, somewhere around that range. Now, fast forward to today, we're only transporting a little over 3,000. We're transporting 3,300 students. So we have dropped from 6,000, 6,500 down to 3,300 for all kinds of reasons, okay? Now, you also have to understand our enrollment has also decreased. And our enrollment was 8,296 in-house for this year. So you can see the changes that are happening as far as the dynamics of transportation are changing, the demographics are changing, students are moving. We have, and Brittany could help me with this, but if I remember right, we have about 1,400 new students that come to transportation who have changed addresses or just new into the district. So that means if you look at, if we're transporting 3,300 and then you take 1,400 that are actually changing addresses or new, we're approaching 50% of those students that we have that are moving or coming in. You see what starts happening. And all of this stuff is just rolling and moving and changing. And so hopefully that gives you some perspective about what's going on as far as, the culture of transportation, how it's changing. You ask, where are those students going? A lot of students are being transported by parents, and that kind of started during COVID, okay? That really increased during COVID. Some are going to homeschool. Some are having a virtual academy thing that they're doing, finishing their credits out. There's all kinds of changes and transitions that are happening that affect us, Also, you have to understand it's also very, very costly. And I'm going from old hours. Dave in the training department probably could update me on this. I wished I'd talked to him, but I forgot. It used to take about 74 hours to train an individual, okay, to get them in behind the wheel. Is that about still right, Dave? Do you know? Roughly? Yeah, about, let's say 74 hours to get. So just taking our starting rate of pay for training, that's $1,289 just to train a single individual. If we have a turnover rate of 25 people per year, that's cost us $33,225 just in training hours that have went out the door, okay? So that's just astronomical to me, that we can have that, and it was even more. But we've had to, I want you to understand, we're not just arbitrarily saying, I just think this driver right here needs a change, so we're just going to change it just to change. And no, we don't have time for that. We'd love you have no idea the years that we went through in the past where everything just kind of was static, stayed the same. It's wonderful. But in this environment, it's necessary. The changes are necessary. So what I want you to know is that flexibility is going to have to be a word that we put in our minds and kind of operate by, and be as flexible as we can when it comes to changes, and doing the job that we've been tasked with doing. So a couple of you might wonder where, and you can see it in your book when you read it, you might wonder where a lot of this information comes for our driver handbook. It comes from many, many sources. Some of it is our local school board policy. Some of it is laws. Some of it is regulations. Some of it is DOT requirements. The physicals that you talked about are in there. You're talking about procedures that we have put in place to keep our students safe. There is a myriad of sources for this book, and most of it is footnoted. So a lot of that is in there, and we're going to be, I think Rob is going to be talking about our normal district things that we do as far as certifications go with confidentiality, acceptable use of technology, and all these other things. We're going to be hitting some of this stuff again here just shortly. But as far as paperwork goes, what happens is for us to operate this department as efficiently as we can, and to make it as efficiently, to run it as efficiently as we can for you, okay? Because we don't want you out there any more than you have to be. Just none of us want that. I mean, we're doing the best we can to make sure that we're running this efficiently. That's one of the reasons I revisited London and reconfigured those routes to get them as close together as I could, to do the best I could to even out the numbers. And we study this stuff. It's unfortunate, we don't. If I had the time, I could do it with every school, but I'm just unable to do that, and some don't require it. But what I want to say is that looking at your route, one of the most valuable pieces of information that we have that you provide for us is your seating chart. And I know those things are a pain. Listen, I've filled them out when I drove, and now I have to deal with all of them. Every seating chart that comes in there, I've got to look at, record the numbers, put it in the book, make sure you turned it in. And I want to help you understand the importance of those things. Now, I know, and Rob knows very well, that when you turn that seating chart in, it may not be 100% accurate. Because when little Johnny gets on the bus and he's supposed to be sitting in seat 5 against the window, little Johnny that day might decide he wants to sit in the back. That's just how it is. So with that, we know that these things aren't perfect. As I said before, it's a living organism because the students are living, right? We're not dealing with numbers, we're dealing with students. We're dealing with real people who have issues just like I do, and we have to manage them properly. But knowing that they're not perfect, the main piece of information, the principals will want that seating chart, and they will want to know, and Rob will want to know where that student's sitting for discipline purposes. Because if Johnny's not supposed to sit by Susie, you know that, and he does, and then we look at the camera and we see, hey, Johnny's sitting beside Susie, then we're going to have to double down and make sure that Johnny's sitting where he's supposed to be according to the seating chart. So, accuracy is important when it comes to discipline. However, we know that they're not going to do what they're supposed to do all the time. So, the most important piece of information to us as far as determining routes is that number on your seating chart when you turn that bus in. Well, how do I determine a number when I've got some that ride and some that don't? Okay, here's what I did when I did my seating charts a long time ago. So I had 90 on my seating chart. You say, what? Yeah, I did. I had 90 on my roster. So really, you've got two different things. You've got a roster and you've got a seating chart. So the roster is the students that you have that could ride at any time. And preferably, I kept that as a second document. I just wrote that down and I know who's riding my bus at any point in time. That's my roster. The seating chart is where those kids are supposed to be seated, okay, from the roster. I had some that rode in the morning that didn't ride in the afternoon. I had some that rode in the afternoon that didn't ride in the morning, just like you. Activity time would hit, football, band, whatever they had going on, my kids would decrease and all this other stuff. So, you've got a flux going on all the time. But what I would do, and the way I managed that is that I would find a place for them. I'd have an AM and a PM seating chart as well as a transfer. That way I could know, and sometimes you have extra spaces where you just have to kind of flux it and do the best you can. What we need to know, as much as anything, is the actual number of students that are riding on a given day for your seating chart. It could be, you could have a roster of 90, but that's your roster, that's not your seating chart. We need to know how many you have on your transfer, how many you have on your home AM and PM route. And this is another thing that I used to do, and I think we've gotten away from it, but we're actually supposed to know the number of students we have on our bus every run, okay? Now that's, oh my goodness, you're asking me to do something else. Well, I got a little counter, and when my students would get on the bus, I would click that counter, and when I got ready to run, I would look at the counter and see how many students I had, and then I would roll. It's as simple as that. And then I would write it down if I had time somewhere. Then you can go back and average that, and you can see how many you're averaging. Now, I know you're saying, well, you're going way overboard. I'm not going to do all that paperwork, and that's fine. It is. I will say this: it is a DOT requirement that we have a ridership list of students. The seating chart provides that. Okay, so that's the importance of the seating chart. It not only helps us understand who's on your bus, how many's on your bus at any given run, and it also provides a DOT requirement, okay, for that. Now, in the law, it basically says that, it ought to be current. It needs to be a current ridership list. So to keep that current, we feel like that once a month is plenty. The first week of every month by Friday, the first full week of every month by Friday, have your seating charts turned in. You mean I have to fill one out every month? No. Just take the charts that you have, copy them if you want to, mark off the students who have left and add the students who are writing now. Okay? So you don't have to keep filling out an entire seating chart every single month. Make it as easy on yourself as you can. It don't have to be pretty. It just needs to be done, right? Okay? So if you could do that with those seating charts, it would help us out tremendously in making decisions about what we're doing as far as routes are concerned and stuff. Now I will say this. No, I won't say that. All right. So let's look at something. We need to look at loading and unloading students for a moment. Okay. I'm gonna take up some of our time. Is that all right? Questions? Yes. Yeah. The PDFs you're talking about? Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I'll see if I can go back and do that and send them out. But now, just realize, as a teacher, that's easy for you because I can just send it, straight to a lot of people either don't use their email. But if you want me to email you a PDF or whatever, I can get your email address and send it to you, and you can edit it. I don't know that everybody can edit it if they don't have the right version of Adobe. Yeah. 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 Right. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. If you need help with that, just let me know and I'll do my best to help you accommodate that. Thank you, Mike. Right. Mm-hmm. The bus you're driving, so if you look at the model and make of your bus at the bottom of the seating chart, it's on all of them. And by the way, the seating charts are in the vending area where all the other documents are over there at the bottom of the mailboxes, and they're labeled for your bus, okay? So thank you, Dee Dee. Huh? Somebody, okay. All right, let's look at loading and unloading just for a moment. I'm not going to go through the procedure as far as how to load and unload a student, but I want to talk about some things about drop-offs and alternate stops. So we used to have the emergency cards that we would fill out, the white ones for the home route and the blue one for the transfers. And those of you who have driven for a while, you will remember those well, how hard those were to get back. We have changed that now to a drop-off permission form that is filled out by the parent at the school, okay? So you really don't need to carry, and I'm going to say this now, you really don't need to carry any forms with you for the students except for your seating chart. Okay, would I be accurate in saying that, wouldn't I? Yeah. So we wanted to reduce the amount of forms that you carried and the information that you had on your bus and that you have to fumble through while you're driving. That's frustrating as a driver to do that, to have to keep up with all that, and it's just another. So we've taken that off of you. Now what we do now is when we have a special drop-off permission. What's a drop-off permission? Drop-off permission is a permission that is granted by the parent that releases Laurel County and every employee from all liability for that student who is under 12 years old. That's the mark that we look at when we're dropping off students. If the student is 12 or older, they're fine to drop off without seeing a parent. If they're under 12, then we have to see a parent unless they give us a drop-off permission form, which is signed every year and updated. This is done at school level. The school sends those to us. We put them on a sheet and keep record of those for quick reference during dispatch. And then, I don't think I missed any last year, is we send that out to remind, to you on remind, and it will say, this student has permission to get off without seeing a parent, and it'll have name, school, age, and address. Now, what you should do with that when you get that reminder is jot that down somewhere. Now, if you can't do that or don't want to do that, I will have a list for students that have drop-off permissions on your bus, and you can come to me and say, Marshall, I need the list of kids for my bus, and I can print that out for you. And as the year goes on, it's going to grow. We had almost 400 drop-off permissions given to us last year. So it was a lot. And, parents, some are working at home. They can't leave their computers. It goes on and on and on, the reasons for that. So anytime somebody asks you for that form, always direct them back to the school and say, please go to the school and retrieve that from them and fill it out there and let the school have it. Because everything we do as far as information goes for students is done at the school level. How am I on time? I don't even know where I'm at. We're good? Okay. So everything we do is for information purposes is done at the school level and comes from the school, okay? So just realize that. Just direct them to the school and do that. So that's our drop-off permissions. Now this year we had the little yellow alternate stop cards that some of you probably saw. Shouldn't have, but you did. So we have done away with those now, and they have an alternate stop permission form that they sign out now so that you don't have any cards. There are no cards that should be in your possession. And if you see a yellow card, they need to fill out a form, okay? Because those things have been done away with. So the alternate stops are this. An alternate stop is a stop where a student who is under 12 would be, or any student who would be let off at a stop other than their primary residence. In Infinite Campus, every student has a primary residence, and some of them have a secondary residence, okay? And so that alternate stop provides I can drop them off at grandma's house, uncle's house, friend's house, wherever. It's filled out, it's signed and approved and sent to us. I also send, just like a drop-off permission form, you're going to receive that alternate stop information as well. So you'll know that little Johnny that normally rides Hunter Hills is 2005 is now going to be on 1105 and being dropped off, at a different road in a different house, okay? So that's what that alternate stop form is all about. Without that alternate stop form, we should not be letting students off at another address. Or if we don't have the secondary in Infinite Campus or the alternate stop form in our record, which should be the secondary, the alternate stop should be secondary. But anyway, if we don't have that information, they should not be let off, okay? Or a signed note from the principal. That's the other thing. From the schools, parents will give a note and say, Johnny needs to get off at Susie's house today. And they'll call the parents for that note. The school will verify that, and then they'll send us that note on email. And that's when you call in and check your notes, and we've got it verified or not verified, and that's how we know those students get off. That's for one day. Alternate stops are meant to be long term. Okay? Any questions? That is correct. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes. So what Pat said is that if a younger student under 12 has an older sibling, they can get off with those students, but they have to be in the same household. So in Infinite Campus, that older student, normally it's a brother or sister or whatever, but sometimes it's not, so we have to make sure that those students are in that same household. If they're in the same household, they can get off without anything, without needing any information. If the older sibling or other person that gets off with them in that household is not there, then we have to see a parent, okay? So it reverts back to that. It's all about keeping these students safe, right? Because we got all kinds of things going on. Let me give you a special note about morning drop-off, and I'm reading from page 13 here if you want to look at this. Let me move past that. Okay, so morning drop-offs. And I'm going to read this to you. Drivers should never drop off a student after they have picked up a student in the morning at a location other than the elementary school. The only approved place for a student to be dropped off in the morning is at the elementary school or the high school, middle school. That's it, okay? They can't be dropped off at a friend's house. They can't be dropped off for any other reason. They have to go back to the school once they get on the bus in the morning. It is extremely important. I'm getting to that. Yeah. A driver should always wait in the morning until the SRO, principal, or designee is present on the bus ramp before allowing any students to depart in the morning, okay? No student should be getting off your bus without an administrator on the ramp of some kind. SRO, principal, teacher designee, whoever it is. We cannot allow those students to get off in the morning unless we see somebody on the ramp, okay? So this is extremely important for us this morning. The acceptable locations for a student to be dropped off in the afternoon, obviously, are the school or the home, following our procedure for students under 12, okay? So please know this. Let me make this note right here. Drivers should rehearse load and unload procedures with students often, especially if a student must cross the road. Please rehearse those unload and load procedures if you have a student crossing the road. Go over with them the procedure, what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to look for your signal, not the stop arm, not the lights. They should be looking at you for you to give them the command to come across the road, correct? Because they can get confused by the lights. Yellow lights come on, they think it's a stop arm. They start crossing the road, and then you have a problem real quick. So please do that. Do not load students with crutches on a regular bus. If you have a student who comes to your bus on crutches, and you don't want to leave them in an unsafe situation, so please use wisdom with this. Just use common sense when you think about this. But if there's a student there, they're in a safe location, it's okay. Tell that student or tell the parent that they need to contact Miss Frida Hampton, and she will make arrangements for them to get to the school, okay? For obvious reasons, we don't have assistance for a student on crutches. If they start to load your bus while you're driving or while you're stopped, you're not supposed to get out of your seat, right? And no help for the student. They fall backwards and, break their head open. We don't want that. It's all about student safety. The crutches are not allowed on the bus as well. Students cannot be dropped off or picked up. Well, no, they can't either. Picked up at a place of business, okay? Don't drop them off at a place of business unless there's apartments over it or, there's an actual residence there or something like that. Or daycare. Yeah, daycares go for that. I'm going to try to hit this a little quicker. I'm going to move it along. Let me just make a personal note right here. My hours have changed, starting last year around February. This year I'll be working 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. And you can text me at any time, okay? And I normally will respond to it. So I do appreciate the text if it's, outside of my office hours, okay? So if you need to be off one morning and it hits 5 o'clock, 4, I don't care what time it is, text me. First thing I do when I roll out of bed in the morning is I look at that phone. First thing, I look at the phone. Did anybody text me? Is anybody off? And I start, thinking what I need to do to get that route covered, okay? So please go ahead and text me at any time. It's all good. I will read it, and I eventually will respond, okay? If you call me and I don't answer, give me a minute. I'll call you back, okay? You can call me again if you want to. I really don't care. It's up to you. But if I don't answer, I will do my best to call you back, all right? So anyway, our 403 procedures have changed some this year, just a little bit. And are we going to deal with that later? Or let me just go ahead and deal with it. Okay, all right. So what's going to happen I guess we just need to break this out. So what needs to happen is this with our 403 procedures. You know what a 403 is, correct? You have a student, parent's not home, don't see the parent can't get in the door because the door's locked. That happens. And, we have all kinds of issues with that. So basically what's supposed to happen is we call in that 403, which just means what? Student's going to be returning, right? That's what it's meant. So now what's going to happen this year is we're going to do the 403, and we're going to do an automatic second attempt. Okay? So every student that's called in as a 403 will automatically be a second attempt. Okay? So that means you go back to the residence, ever how you need to do that, okay, and make that second attempt, and then that's when you would call it in. Are we still doing that the same? We are, aren't we? First time. Yeah. Yeah. So when you have a 403, before you make your second attempt, call it in. I'm making a second attempt. Let us know when you made the second attempt and it was unsuccessful. That's not really a big change. But then when you get to that point and you still don't have a parent, you will go directly back to the school with that 403. Okay? So you'll just go back to that elementary school, high school, middle school, wherever it's at. You will go back to that student's school to drop that student off. Okay? That doesn't seem like a change. What is going to be required of us now is that second attempt going back to the school. When you arrive at the school, and this is all on page 21. Let me make sure I'm telling you right. Yes, page 21. So you will get back to the school with that student, and you will say, I've arrived at North Laurel High School with Johnny, and let dispatch know. Dispatch will then make an attempt to call the parents and come to the bus to pick them up. So essentially what's going to change is we won't be releasing them into the school anymore. We'll be holding them on the bus until the parent shows up. There's the girl. Okay. Not our idea. So, that's why he makes the big money.
Right, huh? The greatest hope of this is obviously from the time that you do the original drop-off attempt to the second attempt, me, Brittany, Daisy, or Dee Dee will be able to get a hold of the parent or guardian and either meet back at the house. Some of you meet at designated areas along the route, and that's okay. I know Pat, for example, I'll just use him, Carmichael Church is kind of in the middle of his route, and all of his folks are familiar with Carmichael, and you can go back there. He goes to Carmichael pretty regularly and drops off kids and wouldn't have to go back to Hazel Green. But in the event, I'll just keep using Pat. In the event that the first attempt's not successful, second attempt's not successful, we're going back to the schools. We're going to hold the kids on the bus, and we're still going to make those attempts in order to get the parent or guardian to be back at the school to meet you. Now, if you go back and you think about some of the 403s you've had in the past, the parents have beat you to the school. They're waiting, in some cases, on you to get back to the school. So that's probably not going to change. Now, does that mean that you're going to be there for hours upon hours upon hours if the parent's not reached? No, that doesn't mean that. What that means is after a determined amount of time, and we're working on this, it's hard to set a hard time. I'll either come out and take custody of the child or Theron or someone else. There'll be an administrator will take custody of the child or myself and relieve you of that. So, yeah, it's not great. Go ahead there, Charlene. Well, with the 403, correct. Now, that's not to say that a principal is not in the building and that a principal may not come out and say, I'll take this child. That's not to say that. I'm not taking that off the table. What I'm saying is the procedure is that we keep them on the bus until we are released to either a parent or administrator, instead of it just being automatic where you pull up and dump them off. When you get back to the school, and I'll just use a Pat again since he's close and I like to pick on him. He gets back to Hazel Green, you're going to be on the radio and you're going to call and say, I'm back at Hazel Green with my 403. By that time, I should have an answer for you what's getting ready to happen. I've talked to mom, they'll be there in 5 minutes. Or not had any success in getting the contact on a parent, Mr. Mullins will be out in 5 minutes. I've not had any contact, don't have a principal there, I'll be there in 15 to take the child. That's what it's going to look like. So it's not a drastic change, it's just a little bit different from what we're used to. Yeah, may end up with a kid on the bus a little longer, but now that's something to think about here. Nothing changes about how we release a child in a 403 situation. Whoever rolls up to that designated spot, they're still going to have to produce an ID. You're still going to have to call in. We're going to have to do a verification check, just like we do already. So that's all going to be the same. It's just a little bit different when we get back to the school. Charlene, do you have another question? They may or may not. Most likely they will. They're required to stay just the same for a designated time. I really don't know what that is. This is not saying that the principals are not going to be there. They're most likely will be there, but they're just wanting to reduce the number of times a child gets off the bus, the number of hands a child passes through before they get to the parent is what they're trying to reduce with this. Pat.
Just to clarify, so do we call in 403 after the first attempt to give additional time to be able to reach the parent?
That's correct. So that's correct. Good question. So what this will look like, I roll up to my stop and Susie, her parents are not there. Nobody on the emergency card's there to pick her up. I get on the radio and I call dispatch and I say, Susie Smith is going to be a 403. I will make a second attempt in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever the case is. Once you do that, we'll be looking up Susie Smith's contact information and we'll start going through the emergency card and we'll make phone calls and let them know, hey, nobody at home, and get that contact made. When we make contact, or if we make contact before the second attempt, we'll radio you back. Say, I've talked to mom, she'll be there in 10 minutes, so you should be fine. You go back and make your second attempt, mom's there, you're fine. You go back to make your second attempt, and we may cut you off from a second attempt. Mom may say, well, I won't be home till 45 minutes. Well, I'm not going to have you go back knowing you're going to be unsuccessful. I'll just tell you when you call back on in the midst of that route, I'll say, take Susie Smith back to Hazel Green. And when you get there, radio, and I'll give you further instructions. By that point, I'll know whether I need to be on the way or send someone on the way, or if mom's going to be there in 5 minutes. So we're going to make this, and it's going to be ugly because it's different at first until we get in the routine. But I'm going to work to make this as short as a time frame as possible for all of us. I don't want you sitting on the ramp with kids for indeterminate amount of time. I don't want to have to be sitting here with kids on a ramp or bring them back to their school or the office for an indeterminate amount of time. That's just not going to be good for anybody. So we're going to make this work to where it's most efficient as possible. Brian? make the loop again. I can't hear you. Well, what road are you talking about? Topton Road? If you're coming from 552 toward Topton and you have to, and you have a 403 in the middle, that way you turn left, go back up to the top of the hill, go to Locust Grove, turn around, come back out 552 and come back down Topton again. And if you're unsuccessful, then you make a right and go back to White and Pine. I mean, like I said, it's not pretty, but I understand. I'm aware of that. And it's just as simple as this. I'm gonna work to make this as smooth as possible. And as Marshall said, this was not Rob's idea. And I've been given a task, we've been given a task as transportation to work this problem, and we're gonna work it the best we can. Sure. I understand that as well. And because of that, there may be an intervention that's not going to work. Now, that's a good point, Brian. I'm glad you brought that up. So let me have your attention, especially if you're driving sports teams. If you've got a field trip and you're taking a ball team and you need to be back at 4:30, obviously a 4:03 is going to put a kink in that. I need to know then, hey, I've got a field trip. I was supposed to leave at 4:30 or 4:45. Let me know if we determine that the second attempt is going to be unsuccessful or it's not going to be practical, so that we can go ahead and intervene quicker. Said it's going to be kind of a work in progress to get this figured out. But my goal is to make it as seamless for you folks and to bear that burden more on us. John. Correct.
Doing it this way, and not be closer, typically, the parent and us go back to that.
A designated area, yes, that's correct. Yes, that is a good point John brought out. In the past, if you had a middle or high school, which it would be rare on the high, but a middle or high school student, we were forced to always come all the way back into town. Didn't matter what your route was. Well, we're going to be smart about things. I'm not going to have you run them all the way back to town to meet a parent that you can meet at Hazel Green, Johnson, Bush, someplace closer. So, I mean, we're going to make this work as close as we can. Correct. And that's where we'll communicate with dispatch on those for that designated spot. There may be a circumstance that they need to come back to school and the principal has aware of a situation that they're going to have to take custody of the kid. Come up off of the bus and take the custody. And like I said, we're going to make it work to be as seamless as possible. And there's questions that's going to come up that we didn't answer today, and just understand we're still going to do the best that we can do given the task that we've been given to complete. Linda. Right. No, that's not going to be the case, because what I was told was when we see that is a repeat offender, is what you're talking about, that we're supposed to, this goes to a Child Protective Services case. Is how they're rolling that. So if we've got somebody that's not there consistently 3 or 4 days, by that point, I'll be aware of it, but you need to make me aware of it, or Marshall, and say, hey, this kid has not been sold there. We've had second attempt. We've had to come back to school, and which we'll be aware of that most likely. But what that's going to initiate is a call to Child Protective Services so that they can be contacted and say, hey, look, it's your responsibility to pick up your child. So, no, it's not going to be an endless cycle, but that's a good question. Anybody else? All right, tell you what we're going to do, since we give everybody that wonderful information. How about we take a break for about 15 minutes and grab you some coffee and donuts, use the restroom, and everybody be back in here at 5 minutes till 10, please. 5 minutes till 10.